I'm going to show you how to play Holy Paladin in Season 4 of Dragonflight in both Raiding and Mythic Plus in a digestible and beginner-friendly format. For the stat priority, eye level and intellect are always going to reign supreme over your secondary stats. However, if you are wondering which secondary stats you should be aiming for, this here is a general idea of the ones you're going to want. It isn't one size fits all, however, and you should be simulating your character to make sure that you are getting an upgrade. With that said though, if you are a beginner, don't worry too much about this. As I said, eye level and intellect, which come hand in hand, are always going to be king over the secondary stats in 99% of all situations. We've got the raid talents here on the left-hand side and a Mythic Plus build I've got for you on the right-hand side. Import strings are both in the description for you, so you can import these straight into your games and have a play around with them. And I will be talking through the core talents that we've got here shortly in the rotation. However, before we go on to that, I want to show you some of the more obscure utilities and cooldowns that we have in our arsenal as a Holy Paladin. Now, these cooldowns you can see here are not the sort of main cooldowns that we're going to be using on a rotational basis, but more of the big defensive ones or the ones, if you will. Starting off with Blessing of Protection, this is going to grant physical immunity to a party member. And while this can be fantastic at stopping all damage coming into a party member, there is one nuance with this, and that is that they are going to lose all threat. What you often see is Holy Paladins or other Paladins putting this onto the tank, thinking that if the tank is in an moment, that this is a fantastic thing to do. It is not, and will likely annoy your tank. The reason being, they're going to lose all threat, meaning the mobs are actually going to go wild, and they're usually going to have to dispel the Blessing of Protection, or BOP, off themselves to actually, carry on with the fight. So do be careful when using it because of that. Divine Shield, however, absolutely fine to use. It's just for you, granting you immunity from all harmful effects and movement speed impairments, etc. And then Lay on Hands at the bottom, another very safe one that you can't go wrong with. No nuances to this at all. It heals a friendly target for 100% of your health. So the more health you have, the more your Lay on Hands will heal. And this is obviously a very big heal on a long cooldown. For the utilities we've got the Divine Steed, where we jump onto our horse, rushing across the battlefield in combat, and this is fantastic. You do actually get 2 different charges of this. We have our various auras we're going to be using. More on that when we go into game. Rebuke is our interrupt, otherwise known as a kick, and of course this is used to interrupt your enemy's spellcasting. Very important there. And Intercession is our battle res. Paladins do actually have a battle res. This is where you can resurrect one of your allies in combat. And now that we're in game, let's actually have a look at how it all comes together, starting off with the raid rotation. First things first, you may see that my UI here is very different to yours. I've custom built this from the ground up using an add-on called ElvUI, among some others. And if you would like to get it yourself, you can. It's in my Patreon. Speaking of my Patreon, if you do want to join there, of course it supports the channel and I really appreciate it, but I do try and put as much in there for my supporters as possible. I actually am writing a lot of written guides in there, like how to log your character and analyze those logs, how to simulate your character, working out which gear is better and things like that, generally based around beginners. And I'm going to be filming some Patreon only videos soon as well to help you get on your beginner journey, no matter your spec. One other thing you will notice on my UI is this in the middle of the screen. No, it's not an action bar. It's a weak aura. It's the Luxfos Paladin weak aura. If you're not sure what that is, join my Discord and we'll help you figure it out. It's quite simple, but of course, only when you know how, right? So for beginners, we're there for you. Don't worry, we've got a really friendly community that can help you with whatever you need. And what it does is it shows you your mana, your holy power, which if I use my flash of light here, you can see I'm getting 1, 2, 3, that etc. That's our holy power. And we have our holy power generators, which is a lot of our main spells. And then we have certain spells that are going to spend our holy power. And that's one of the main foundations of Holy Paladin. A few other things that form the foundation of Holy Paladin is 1, glimmer of light here. Holy Shock leaves a glimmer of light on the target for 30 seconds. When you use Holy Shock, targets with the glimmer of light are damaged or healed. Obviously, if it's an ally, they're not going to be damaged. changed for X amount, split evenly among them. Glimmer of Light's total healing and damage is increased by 4% for each target affected. You may have Glimmer of Light on up to 8 targets. When Glimmer of Light is dispelled, this is more PvP, its effect is activated at 100% value. So basically, when we use our Holy Shock here, that's going to put a glimmer of light on the target. I now have a glimmer of light on me, and we have a few other ways of getting this out on multiple people. Because again, when we do our healing, it's going to do healing on our glimmer of light targets. Meaning if you're in the raid, and we know that big damage is incoming, big damage, then we can get out a load of Glimmer of Lights and then do our healing when that damage comes in, also then healing all of our glimmered targets. There is also another foundation that works similarly, is that even a word? To Glimmer of Light, and that is your beacon. If you're familiar with Paladin, you'll know about beacons. This season, we're using it a bit differently to usual. So basically, normally you have a beacon of light, and you can mark a target as your beacon of light, mimicking the effects of your heals. And then we have this talent choice node here, Beacon of Faith, marking a second target as a beacon, mimicking the effects of Beacon of Light. Your heals will now heal both of your beacons, but at 30% reduced effectiveness. If I actually just swap over to this talent here, which we're not actually taking, but I want to show you it properly so you understand if you're new. Beacon of Light. Wrap a single ally in holy energy, causing your heals on other party or raid members to also heal that ally for 35% of the same amount. Healing this ally directly with Flash of Light or Holy Light grants 1 holy power. So generally what you would do is put it on the tank, etc. And then whenever you do healing, you're also going to heal that person. And then the talent that we're not choosing, which is Beacon of Faith, marks a second target as a beacon, mimicking the effects of Beacon of Light. So that then would do 2 different people. The talent we're actually taking, though, is Beacon of Virtue. And if you're thinking, well, why are you telling me then if we're not taking it? I just want you to understand how beacons work, because it's a really core part of the Paladin gameplay. So what Beacon of Virtue does is, it replaces Beacon of Light completely. And a lot of time you might hear people talking about beacons, etc. Well, if you're thinking, why haven't I got it? Well, this is why, because you're taking this talent. It's on a 15-second cooldown, replaces Beacon of Light. Apply Beacon of Light to your target and 4 injured allies for 8 seconds. All affected allies will be healed by 35% of the amount of your other healing done. So basically, we can just put it on a load of people instead. And because we're doing raid healing in this build, we want to be getting out our glimmers, remember that's these ones, and our beacons on as many people as possible, and it works really nicely. So now that we've covered off the foundations of the spec, how are we going to put it all together? Well, we're going to use our Beacon of Virtue, and for AoE healing, pretty much on cooldown, getting those beacons out onto our raid members. The second thing in our priority is actually going to be spending our holy power. Remember I showed you that's our holy power building up here. If you're on 5 or maybe even 4 holy power, like we are here, 4 or 5, then we're going to want to spend our holy power. So this is going to slot in between 1 and 2 here. And we're going to spend it with either our Word of Glory or our Light of Dawn. Word of Glory calls down the light to heal a friendly target for 34,000, or Light of Dawn unleashes a wave of holy energy, healing up to 5 injured allies within a 15-yard frontal cone, like this, for about 5,000 each. So they do similar amounts of healing. Light of Dawn, more AoE, Word of Glory, more single target. After that, we're going to use Light's Hammer on cooldown. It's on a minute cooldown, hurling a light-infused hammer, as you can see here. I can place it, hurling that hammer, dealing holy damage to nearby enemies, and healing up to 6 nearby allies for X amount every 2 seconds for 14 seconds. So we're going to want to use that on cooldown where most of our allies are grouped up. This could be in the melee, etc. And then we have our Holy Shock. Triggers a burst of light on the target, dealing damage to an enemy or healing an ally. We have 2 charges of it, and as you can see, it recharges quite quickly. We're going to want to use these charges, which are going to put out the glimmers of light on our targets, and healing them, of course. Next up, if we have the mana available, we can use our Flash of Light. You can see it costs 9,000 mana, and it's a single target, quick heal. It is quite mana intensive, though. That's the only thing. So use this as much as you like, really, but just do be aware of how much mana it does cost. After that, we're going to be using Judgment on our target, judging the enemy, dealing holy damage and preventing damage dealt to the target by the target. So if you're thinking, well, I'm healing, not doing DPS, actually you are doing some DPS as a Holy Paladin. And remember that with Judgment, it's also going to prevent damage done by the target. Meaning, say this training dummy is attacking the tank, when you use Judgment, rather than healing the damage, you're preventing it from ever happening when you use that. You can use that on cooldown on the target. We've also got Consecration, which you're going to want to put down. Generally, we are going to be in melee range. Consecration, consecrating the land beneath you, causing damage to enemies over 12 seconds who enter it. A few notes on the talents affecting these spells. One is Golden Path. Consecration heals you and 5 allies within it for every X amount for every 0.8 seconds. So don't just think that this again is just doing damage. It's not. It's also healing the people within the consecration. Again with Judgment of Light here. Judgment causes your next 5 successful attacks against the target to heal the attacker as well. So again, Judgment is indirectly actually causing more healing than you think. Then we have Hammer of Wrath, hurls a divine hammer that strikes an enemy for X amount of holy damage, only usable on enemies that have less than 20% health or during Avenging Wrath. And that is on a 14-second cooldown and it also generates 1 holy power. If you're thinking, what is Avenging Wrath? That is this cooldown here. I'll be talking about that later. This is very on the low end of our priority list, as is Crusader Strike, which also generates 1 holy power and strikes a target doing some damage. The main use of this is generating holy power so that we can get our Word of Glory and Light of Dawn spells out. Holy power spending is one of the main ways that we are going to be doing healing. We want to be getting up that holy power as quick as possible. We can do that by using Crusader Strike and Hammer of Wrath. So we've also spoken about the holy power spenders. Now we've got some more spells down here. So starting on the left, these are more like interesting utility spells. Cleanse, really simply, just need to tell you about that. Cleanse is a friendly target, removing poison, disease, and magic effects. And then we have a really interesting one. The Blessings of Spring, Summer, Autumn, and Winter on a 45-second cooldown. Bless an ally for 30 seconds, increasing their healing done by 15% and healing received by 30%. When you use Blessing of Spring, it goes onto the 45-second cooldown and turns into Blessing of Summer. Summer blesses an ally, causing their attacks to have a 40% chance to deal additional 20% damage. Blessing of Autumn blesses an ally, causing their cooldowns to recover 30% faster. And by the way, while we're just waiting for that to come off cooldown to discuss Winter, if you are thinking, oh, this is all getting too much, and you don't want to worry about using the Summer, Autumn, etc., which it is a fantastic spell, but say you're a beginner and you're like, this is just too much, you could then switch this talent into Merciful Auras. Your auras restore X amount of health to 3 injured allies within 20 yards every 2 seconds. While Aura Mastery is active, heals all allies within 40 yards, and healing is increased by 20%. So although I do think that the Blessings of Summer, etc. are better, you could go with Merciful Auras for a much more passive effect without really losing too much. We have got our auras down here, Consecration or Devotion Aura. I generally would just go with Devotion Aura as a healer. Lastly, Blessing of Winter then blesses a friendly healer, restoring 1% mana every 2 seconds. You can see then just how useful these blessings can be. But again, up to you which one you take there. We've then got some cooldowns we can use. Hand of Divinity, calling upon the light to empower your spells, causing the next 2 holy lights to heal 40% more and cost 50% mana, and can be instant cast. So when we use Hand of Divinity, that is on your Holy Light spell here, an efficient spell, healing a friendly target for X amount. And while empowered by the light, Flash of Light heals for an additional 20%, and Holy Light or Judgment refunds some of your maximum mana. So we can use Flash of Light in there as well. We have Daybreak on a 1-minute cooldown, absorbing our active glimmers, triggering their effects at 200% value, granting mana per glimmer of light consumed. Remember our glimmers up here, where Holy Shock leaves a glimmer of light on the target. When you Holy Shock, targets of glimmer of light are damaged or healed, etc, etc, etc. Lastly, we have Tears Deliverance. Releases the light within yourself, healing 5 injured allies instantly, and an injured ally every 0.8 seconds for 20 seconds. Allies healed also receive 15% increased healing from your Holy Light, Flash of Light, and Holy Shock. Mainly Holy Shock and Flash of Light here. And again, that's only a 1.5 minute cooldown, and that is Tears Deliverance. There is the Boundless Salvation talent down here, where your Holy Shock, Flash of Light, and Holy Light extend the duration of Tears Deliverance on yourself when cast on targets affected by Tears Deliverance. Just be aware of that happening as well. Again, it's a passive effect that's going to be happening throughout the rotation anyway. Lastly, we have Avenging Wrath and Divine Toll. We're generally going to want to use these together, and you'll notice that Avenging Wrath is on a 2-minute cooldown, whereas Divine Toll is on a 1 minute, meaning for every 2 Divine Tolls. You can use 1 Avenging Wrath. Do use them together whenever you can. So Avenging Wrath, that's where you can use your Hammer of Wrath without the enemy having to be on low health. Avenging Wrath, calling upon the light to become an avatar of retribution, allowing Hammer of Wrath to use on any target, increasing your damage, healing and critical strike chance by 15% for 20 seconds. And then Divine Toll, this is why we're using Divine Toll with it, because remember, we're increasing our healing and crit with Avenging Wrath, and then we're going to do a load of healing with Divine Toll, so it synergizes together perfectly. Instantly cast Holy Shock on up to 5 targets within 30 yards. After casting Divine Toll, you instantly cast every 5 seconds, lasting 15 seconds. Remember that when you cast Holy Shock, that's going to be putting a glimmer of light on those targets, meaning Divine Toll is a fantastic way to be getting out a load of glimmer of lights really quickly. And that is pretty much it. So just to recap, then we've got our Beacon of Virtue, putting beacons, which is also going to heal those people when we heal others, onto our targets for a short duration. We're going to throw in our Light's Hammer, doing healing in that area, same as Consecration, and Judgment, which we're going to use on cooldown. We're going to be using our Holy Shock to get out glimmers, and using Flash of Light as a sort of filler spell. Using Hammer of Wrath and Crusader Strike whenever possible to generate Holy Power. And when we're at 4 or 5 Holy Power, we're going to use Word of Glory to heal single target, and Light of Dawn to heal in an AoE cone in front of us to spend our Holy Power. We can use our Avenging Wrath every 2 minutes, meaning we can use Hammer of Wrath on whoever we like, and also increasing our healing, damage, and critical strike. And we can use our Divine Toll to get out a load of Holy Shocks, and therefore Glimmers of Light. Don't forget about your Cleanse for removing nasty effects, your Seasons if you're taking them. This buff here that you can see coming up is when it's empowering your Flash of Light. If you saw that there, that's for your Divine Revelations talent, if that's what that's coming from. Don't forget you've got your Hand of Divinity as well, doing the same thing. Daybreak, absorbing those Glimmer of Lights, and Tears, Deliverance, doing a load of healing as well. And that is pretty much it. One thing I want to mention before we move on to the Mythic Plus is our Mastery, increasing healing done by up to 40% based on the proximity of your target. And we also have a talent here, Beacon of the Lightbringer. Your Mastery Lightbringer now increases your healing based on the target's proximity to either you or your Beacon of Light, whichever is closer. So it doesn't affect us as much if we're not as close to our target. Still is useful to be for more healing, but with this talent it does make things a lot easier with that. For the set bonus this season, what the 2 set does is, it means that your Holy Shock criticals are going to do a load more healing, and also help reduce the cooldown on 1, Light's Hammer, by 2 seconds. Or the other spell which you can pick, which is Holy Prism. We're going to be talking through that in the Mythic Plus build. So it will also reduce the cooldown on that if you are in Mythic Plus. For the 4 set, Light's Hammer is actually going to heal a lot more frequently, and it's also going to generate 1 Holy Power every 4 seconds. Whereas Holy Prism, the other option we're going to be talking through, is going to have its healing also increased by 40%, generating 1 Holy Power if cast on an enemy, and 3 if cast on an ally. So again, it's really helping you get more healing out and get more Holy Power with this tier set this season. If we look what talents we're changing, it really isn't many here. One of the main ones is Rebuke. This is your interrupt. I spoke about this earlier in the video. We don't use it really in raiding. And again, the other one is going to be Holy Prism. Firing a deep beam of light that scatters to strike a clump of targets. If the beam is aimed at an enemy target, it deals damage, radiating healing. If the beam is aimed at a friendly target, it heals, radiating damage to enemies. Generally, the rotation is a tad simpler, but quite similar. Again, we're going to be using our Beacon of Virtue to get out all of our beacons on our allies in Mythic Plus. We can use our Holy Prism for AoE, healing and damage. You can see it went out there. Using our Holy Shock charges as usual, using Consecration and Judgment for the same reasons. Hammer of Wrath whenever we can use it. Crusader Strike, again to generate Holy Power, and Flash of Light as a filler, and using pretty much the same cooldowns as we were before. It's really the only changes we are going to be making to Mythic Plus build. And that is it, guys. That is how you're going to play Holy Paladin in Season 4 of Dragonflight. If you did enjoy this video, please do let me know in the comments, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on all my other videos. I have actually covered every single PvE class and spec there is. And again, if you would like to support the channel, you can join my Patreon, link down below in the description for that one, where there's going to be behind the scenes videos giving you other tools and guides so that your journey in WoW is a lot less stressful, as well as being able to import my UI. And if you have any questions, etc., you can just come on over to the Discord where we can help you out with any questions or queries or struggles you may be having with your class or spec. Here is the playlist for the other PvE guides this season. If you are looking at Paladin or other classes, like I said, I have done all of them for you.